Hi, Kathy. Hi, Allison. I'm just going to go live on some of these other platforms here. All right, great. And hopefully this is all working. Give me a thumbs up. Drop me a comment if you can hear any of this. And hopefully you can see me. So this is our Thursday weekly live stream for an anxiety teaching. And if you're watching live, I see a couple of you on Zoom. I see a couple of people on Facebook. That's great. And let me see here. We're going live on Instagram also. It's like a lot of new technology for me in particular. So it's great to be with everybody here. I hope you guys are having a good week. And we're going to be talking about relaxing today. So I know a lot of us have this issue, especially if we're high functioning, we're high achievers, of relaxing, even not being able to relax even when we're off or when we're on vacation. So I thought it was a relevant subject given that we're entering the summer here. So before we start, as always, we're going to take a few breaths. So wherever you are, you can take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and just let yourself land and settle. And for the time being, see if it's possible to just release the pressure to be on. So, nothing that you have to do to perform. You don't have to be proving anything. This is a space for you just to be where you are, where you just get to be, and a space where you can touch into what's true for you and your own presence. And hopefully that in itself brings some peace. So, if you have ever had free time but couldn't relax, if your calendar has been empty, but there's been a lot of stuff going on in your mind and your body, and you've been unable to unwind, um, this exploration today is specifically for you. Okay. So, the first thing to know is that you're not broken. And certainly you're not lazy, but often what happens for a lot of us who have been in the cycle of achievement and pushing and overachieving, especially in our culture where there's a lot of hustle and grind kind of value. Typically, this pattern doesn't just stop on its own. So it starts to really get integrated and embedded into your nervous system. And not just your physical nervous system, but the way that your entire being operates because it learned to survive that way. So, obviously, the work that we're doing in our groups, patterns can be relearned, peace can be recontacted, and you can come home to yourself. So, today we're going to walk through the how and the why this happens, and then we're going to go through three techniques and approaches that you can start to use and implement today going into the summer so you can actually relax and actually enjoy your time. All right, so if you are feeling this resonating, if something in you is saying, yes, I need this, just want to offer those of you who are out there and let people know that there is the sanctuary within. This is a group healing space for people who are not just wanting to manage anxiety, but really ready to heal it from the inside out. So you can DM me if you want more information about that. We have a lot more teachings and a lot more live streams that go on in that group. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive in. Um, So we'll start with just looking at high functioning anxiety and achievement and this pushing quality that a lot of us wear in our culture. It's a really, in some ways, a great persona, right? It's a great mask that we've developed because likely you're very efficient, you're very reliable, you're strong. People around you say, wow, you really are able to do a lot of things. You're really amazing. But a lot of times, what happens inside is the experience is quite different, right? You're bracing, you hold your breath, you're tired and wired at the same time, so that when the time finally comes to rest, you can't switch it off or you feel guilty slowing it down. And a lot of times, what I see in my clients and what I've experienced myself is that you spend your entire vacation or your entire break preparing for what's next, preparing for that time back in the office. So this is not necessarily because you're doing anything wrong. It's just because your system never learned to feel safe in stillness, that it wasn't okay to actually be still and relax. And um, obviously, this is not your fault, but it's probably, if you're here, time to learn what to do about that and to reconnect with more of the truth of actually relaxation being more of the natural state of the soul, more of the natural state of who we are. So, when you're in contact with the soul instead of the egoic personality, this part of us that wants to control, that wants to follow the rules, that wants to be safe, that wants reassurance, all of those things, the soul naturally is relaxed. There's not a whole lot of constriction or tension from the soul's perspective because it's so ingrained or intertwined with God or the universe, being, whatever you want to call it, that it's in tune, attuned with the larger intelligence of being itself. On the other hand, our ego personality doesn't quite trust that, right? So it says, all right, I want peace, but it doesn't trust peace. So when it actually comes, when there's space, when there's time, it ends up rejecting it. And the part of our psyche that is usually the largest resistance here is the inner critic. And this is the voice that says, you have not earned this rest. You should be doing something useful. You're falling behind. So this is not an inherently bad voice, right? It's protective in some ways. And in the sanctuary and people who have worked with me in the Facebook groups that we have, we've worked on this a little bit of becoming more aware of the inner critic and these voices that says you have to push, you have to be doing something, you have to be accomplishing something in order to be of value. So, of course, when there's vacation time or when there's break time, this voice comes in because it wasn't safe for you or it wasn't okay, wasn't approved of to not be accomplishing something. So, this typically forms during the period in your life when being on, when being accomplished, when doing good things kept you safe or it kept you accepted, it got you a lot of kudos or approval and it got you love, right? So obviously, those are all great things. But the more that we reinforce that, the more that we lose contact with the truth that actually you are inherently okay and inherently worthy without doing all of those things. It's not like the accomplishments or the achievements or the prizes or whatever it is, those inherently are bad things. It's when they disconnect you from knowing that you have inherent value just for your existence. You don't have to do a thing. There's inherent worth. And actually, much, much, much more worth than you can even properly really imagine. It's really hard for our ego mind, our ego personality to wrap our heads around that. So, in other words, this pattern that has kept you in in a way very approved of, that you found your value in it, keeps you actually stuck in this loop of tension, right? So the inner critic, and I was just talking to one of my clients today about it. The inner critic is like a survival script. It's like a rule book or a program that is not really relevant to the present moment and what you actually need as a soul that's flowing in and out, right? Breathing and being and moving with God or with the universe, this larger presence that holds us. The inner critic typically speaks from a place of fear and protection, not necessarily true wisdom, which comes from being present and responding to what is here in the moment. So healing happens when we become one, first aware of that voice and what it's telling us, not buying into that so quickly and saying, is it actually true that I haven't earned this break or that I need to actually earn this break? Or is it just something that I've been told? Is it something that I've been conditioned with? Is it a tape or a message that just is on repeat in my psyche? Right. So we meet that voice with presence, with awareness, and with truth. Right. This is all about getting into getting in touch with the truth of who we are and really feeling directly that the truth of who we are is actually more of a relaxed state, that inherently we have stillness and peace and spaciousness in our most natural state. Our ego state is very constricted. It has a lot of urgency. It thinks that everything's at stake, that we have to push, push, push in order to get anything done. So this is quite a different mentality. It's quite a different perspective. It's a different orientation. So the path to us learning how to actually relax is shifting from the ego perspective to actually being curious and in some ways courageous enough to surrender what we have known to be true, what we've believed to be true, and actually finding out what is actually true, right? Finding out that relaxation is actually the path to our inherent value. It's actually the path to enjoying our life as it is. It's actually the path to being in touch with God itself, because God really is only able to be experienced in the present moment. And of course, we experience the benefits of that, of feeling love, right? Feeling support, feeling a holding and a reassurance, a sense of safety that all is well, right? That's really where the transformation happens when we start to loosen our identification with the ego self and actually start shifting and opening ourselves up to being experiencing what's happening. Okay, so let's just name what it is when the inner critic shows up with its checklist and it goes through all the different things that it says. I'm going to pause my video real quick to let it catch up. Um, but the inner critic will say all sorts of things, right? This is lazy. You should be doing something more productive. What are you even doing with your life? All right. So if you're watching live, feel free to comment in some of the things that your inner critic says. If you're watching on replay, same thing. So the key here is that this guilt that the inner critic is trying to impose isn't really that logical. It's just simply programming and conditioning. And really, underneath all of that is the message and the belief that you are only valuable when you're achieving. Right? Just feel into that and see if that's true for you. If there is an underlying belief or an underlying message saying that you are only valuable when you are achieving something. But of course, what we're saying here is that that's not true at all. That's just simply something that you were taught or something that you internalized or absorbed in order to survive, right? Especially in our culture, it's very image based. There's a lot of value on achievement, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. There's a lot of value that's placed on struggling and pushing and grinding. But what if that's not necessarily true, right? What if that's something that we were just taught and that we were just conditioned with? So the key thing and where the rubber hits the road here is that we want to interrupt that story. We want to confront with compassion this belief that you have to be doing something, you have to be achieving, you have to be pushing in order for you to be okay and to have value and to be loved and to be accepted. So obviously there is a deficiency there, or there's a gap of you not knowing that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. If you knew that you were completely full of worth, no matter what, you would allow yourself reasonable and appropriate break time. You would appreciate the time that you have to really soak into being alive, to be present to the beauty of life itself. There's so many things that we can enjoy that we don't let ourselves enjoy because of this belief. So this is the a kind of spiritual reorientation, which of course is not easy at first, but it's worth a lot because if you look at the cost of us not actually being able to enjoy relaxation, it makes life feel really exhausting, doesn't it? It's like um, this constant on button or this constant pressure. So when rest no longer feels like a threat, what happens is that you actually start to feel the value of relaxation, the inherent sense of peace, the inherent sense of contact with presence. It's quite beautiful. And life becomes quite peaceful and simple when we are able to touch into that truth. So, of course, like always, we want to bring this into practice. So, a couple of things that we want to look at uh, how to shift from this inner critic dynamic and actually returning to a rest state for your soul and your spirit, for your body, and for your daily life. And of course, this is going to impact people around you, right? They're going to feel your presence. They're going to feel like, I can actually relax around you, right? I'm not going to be needing to feel that same kind of pressure. The first thing that we want to do here is to practice sacred pauses. So this is going to right away confront the inner critic. But we're going to start small. So you can start with just 60 seconds of stillness. Usually, for like, even if it's like 30 to 60 seconds, your inner critic can't really grab onto that so much, right? So just start with 60 seconds of stillness. It's almost like a microdose of contacting relaxation. And we say, okay, for this 60 seconds, you don't even listen to the inner critic. We're going to push it off to the side for now. And we're going to say, for this 60 seconds, I am just going to do nothing and be where I am. And just see what happens when you practice that. Okay, well, let's just do it now. All right, so for 60 seconds, let's just take a moment and simply not do. You can just feel the breath. If the inner critic is coming in already, just push it off for now. Feel into the space that you're in right now. And you can simply feel the breath. And see if you can feel into the space itself. Feel into the stillness and the silence. Okay, so that was about 60 seconds. And just see what came up. What came up for you? What happened? What was challenged in this moment? It occurs to me, especially with social media and all the things that are going on, we are inundated with so much information that it's very odd in a way to simply have silence, to simply be still and to have space. But look what happens. Even a small shift like that for 60 seconds, how that does for you. All right, so I invite you to take a breath. We're going to transition into the second technique here. And the second technique really is mindfulness based. So we're letting the body lead. So when you feel that push, when you feel the constriction start to happen, that kind of drive that starts to kick in, you think of this as like an engine that is revving too hard, right? All right, so in those moments, we want to just let the foot off the gas pedal so that the engine is not revving so much. We're just going to let it slowly unwind, right? And it will feel like you have to use your entire being to just pause. And that's okay. We just want to notice how difficult it is and how ingrained these patterns are, because it's like we've got a big ship that has its own momentum now, and we're trying to turn it or we're trying to slow it down, right? All that takes actually is letting yourself relax and just taking the foot off the gas pedal. When you do that, yes, the car is still going to go, but eventually it will pause, it will slow down, it will stop. Yeah, because we're not juicing that engine anymore, we're not revving it. So when you are aware, this is a really good way to use the body, is to use the body as a signal that when it starts to tighten, when it starts to constrict, that you start to get familiar with that drive and that push. And immediately when that happens, you say, okay, I'm going to let the my foot off the gas. And the tricky thing here is that the inner critic really believes that it's all about revving. You want to, it's like, it just has one setting. It's like, and it's going to go into the red every single time. It really thinks that, okay, if I like rev my engine that much, if you work harder and harder and harder, then that's going to be better for you. But obviously the truth is, like, let's just look at your car, right? You can't be revving your engine to, 8, 9 the entire time. It's not good for the engine. So we want to use our body sensations as a way to gauge where the inner critic is, what kind of messages that we're believing, so that you can just simply start to use your body and your mind in a more appropriate way. Doesn't mean that you stop doing things. It doesn't mean that you need to stop driving the car, right? It just means that, hey, we don't want to rev the engine that much when you don't have to, right? We don't have to rev the engine to go to the grocery store. You can just drive normally, right? So it's the same kind of thing here. I'm going to pause my video one more time as we transition into the third technique here. This is the last one that we're going to look at. And I love the title of this one. It's called Practicing Holy Unproductivity. Practicing holy unproductivity. So blocking time in your calendar for absolutely nothing. This is a awesome practice. Um, so we're blocking time not because you earned it, not because you are trying to achieve anything or accomplishing anything. No, we're bypassing and undercutting that entire belief system. So you block out, let's just say, 10 minutes out of your day to do absolutely nothing. Maybe start with 10. And then if you feel really courageous, you can start to up that. But this is a direct practice to get you into the truth that resting is a natural state. And you're resting not because you earned it or you deserve it or anything like that. It's just simply because you exist. So this becomes more of your baseline. Now, the issue that the inner critic has with this is that, well, does this mean that you're just going to be completely lazy and worthless and you're just going to sit on your butt all day? No, of course not. That's the inner critic's fear. That doesn't happen. But it does mean that, okay, maybe for those 10 minutes, if you can really sink into it and really allow yourself to be there, that actually you get more energy and more charge, more of a vitality boost in those moments, right? So we don't have to escape anything. We don't have to stop doing what we need to do in our lives. We're just making an attempt to contact more of the truth throughout our day and reclaim the parts of ourselves that we're actually not meant to be judged. Like there's no judgment in God's mind or the universe or presence itself about simply being, about simply resting. We start with stillness and resting because it's just easier to see. But eventually, what happens is that we transition that into anything that we're doing. That actually there's a peace and a stillness, even when we're in action. There's a calm, there is an okayness, right? So just imagine that possibility for a minute. If you cleared and cleansed all of the inner critic judgments and messaging and rules out of your system, think about what that might be like as you are going throughout your day. Wouldn't it feel smoother? Wouldn't it feel easier? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you wouldn't still be able to drive to the store, go grocery shopping, do your work, do your chores, clean the dishes, do your laundry. You're just doing those things without the added static of the inner critic. Okay? So, um, let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to start opening this up. We'll close our live stream here in a minute, and I'll open up the Q&A for our Sanctuary Within members. If this is speaking to you, if you're seeing this on replay or if you're in live in some of these other channels like Instagram or Facebook, and you're ready to take the next step, then let me know. You can reach out to me and I can tell you a little bit more about the Sanctuary Within. I'd love to hear from you. Again, these are not productivity hacks. They're not, it's not management techniques. It's really a return to our true nature and really knowing that from the inside out, not just conceptually. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else. No, I think that's it. So let's just close with a breath here. And again, for those of you who have worked with me and are familiar with my approach, it's all about coming back to the present moment and really recognizing and being aware of who you are in the most essential nature of your being. So that means that actually who you are is enough. Who you are is quite wonderful and precious and brilliant. Who you are is love itself. And who you are not, a lot of times, is the ego, personality, and who we've taken ourselves to be, all the roles and the defenses and the patterns that we've come to think of as ourselves. And a lot of that has to do with anxiety patterns, safety patterns, survival patterns, old traumas that are still playing out. All right. So I invite you to just take a breath and on your inhale, just breathe in where you are right now. And on your exhale, just letting go and letting yourself be. All right. Thanks for joining me for the live stream. I'm going to close down the stream and start to open up Q&A for our sanctuary members. All right. Take care, everybody.